Merry Christmas, everyone. In case you're listening to this in the future, this episode is coming out on December 25th. So rather than serving up another fast-paced episode, we thought that it was important to slow things down. To help us do that, we're going to share the entire conversation that Pete Buer had with Christian Madsbjerg, author of Look, How to Pay Attention in a Distracted World. It's a very thoughtful conversation about what differentiates humans and machines, what we should worry about, and what gives Christian hope. As to what we hope for, we hope that you enjoy this conversation between Pete and Christian, and we also hope that you have a wonderful holiday with those you love and celebrate something that is truly uniquely human, a holiday.
Christian, welcome. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
I'd like to start with a little bit of context. You recently published a book called Look. I was placing my Amazon order earlier in the week, and as I read the review, I think it was by way of Penguin, paying attention is a critical human skill, yet many of us have forgotten how to listen carefully and observe intentionally. Deluged by social media, hobbled by the increasing social isolation it fosters, we need to rediscover the deeply human ways we connect with others. Tell us about the book and what compelled you to write it.
So I wrote two previous books on attention, but primarily on how to analyze. So the analysis of data input that can be used to understand how other people pay attention. So this was more a book, this is a philosophical book, you could say. What is attention in the first place? How do people use it? And is it different than machines? Like, are we different than machines or dolphins or, asteroids? If we are, then how? And what does it mean? So it's about seeing at the most basic level. So seeing color, distance, shapes, and so on, and how that ends up as this meaningful world that we inhabit.
There's also a reference in the book. I want to show people how to use philosophy in everyday life. How should listeners be thinking about that? Right.
So I taught philosophy for 10 years. It's sort of my first love, academic love. And I particularly like a tradition called phenomenology. And the phenomenological tradition is, 150 years old or something. And it's about studying how humans experience the world. So not necessarily what the world is from a natural science standpoint, not counting, not describing things like a sensor or a camera would, but how we actually experience it as sort of living beings. And that, I think, is important. And that is a very practical relationship to philosophy. Philosophy has many other things it can do. And for me, it's a very practical everyday tool. But particularly phenomenology and the study of experience is important right now in terms of how we are different. And I think the source of that is how we pay attention and how we perceive the world.
As you know, we are a company whose focus at some level is on the application of artificial intelligence, machine learning, to business transformation. And so help us get the listeners from where we are right now, focus of the book, and the philosophy of communication, I guess, to AI. What role does AI play in your story?
So I've been interested in AI for 20 years and sort of followed it. And all the way back from the 50s, which could be, good old-fashioned AI, where you hard-coded rules into a machine, to what we have now with neural nets and deep learning and so on. And in order to sort of make a distinction between, you can say, man and machine, how are we different from or other than machines? And if we are, in which way? So I wrote a book called Sense Making, and it's about the age of the algorithm, really, and what human sciences and human beings how we can see ourselves in that world, which, of course, and you know that way better than me, will have impacts on all sides of our lives. Not every side, but a huge part of our lives will be saturated by new technologies. So I've been interested in the different forms of artificial intelligence and the philosophies and ideas behind them. And then, what is happening right now is that it's getting closer and closer to human intelligence, but it's still different at the root of it. At the root of it, it's not human intelligence. It's intelligent in so many ways, but it's not intelligent in the way we are intelligent.
And so, what are the categories of ways that human experience of life change by the presence of this alternate intelligence?
How it might change? Well, that's still playing out. I suspect, and I've seen many trends come and go. In the last 3 years, we've had cryptocurrency and metaverse, and I don't know, NFTs and so on, and it's the same people that sort of jump on that bandwagon, and every time it's a complete alteration of everything we've ever seen and ever known, and so I'm a little bit more skeptical than most people are about what it really means. But I think at the root of how we're different, it is that we care about something. So when Deep Blue won against Kasparov, there were only one of the two players that really was a player and that really played chess and cared about chess. The same with Go, and the same with the machines today. They don't care about anything. And that's, maybe a problem for us. We end up losing in chess, but it's what makes us human. And our experience of the world is seen through a lens of care. And care sounds warm and fuzzy, but it doesn't have to be. It could be caring, about conquering Europe. And that's a form of care that I think some of us would be against. But certainly a sense of care. And the other thing I think is that we read the world through emotion, and we know what the world is meaningfully compared to just recording what it is. So when humans walk through a street, we process very little information because we know what a street is and we know how it works. We know how a school works. We know how a traffic intersection works. We know the rhythm of a city. And those things, it's because we care about where we live, but it's also just a vastly different way of processing information that just belongs to us. So when people throw around, we have human-like intelligence, it's hyperbole, because it's not better or worse. It's just very different, and spreadsheets have been better than me, or computers have been better than me at calculating things my entire life. But that doesn't mean that I don't need a way to quantify the world and a way to understand proportion. I just use technology to do it. And that I think is again a difference between human intelligence and machine intelligence. So,
critical distinction, your observation on the difference between the two types of intelligence. Folks listening to the podcast in many cases are leaders of business. There are also, of course, leaders in life. This distinction, how does it play through to the way they should think about managing business or messaging in business or talking to customers or having dinner with their families?
Right. Well, leave dinner with the families aside and talk about businesses. My experience after working with businesses for 25 years is, in order to understand what people truly need, and predict what people might need in the future or could need in the future, you need a human to understand that experience. You can be supported by technology, you can be supported by data, but the idea that a machine is a kind of truth machine is as, that would spit out truth about humans, is as misdirected as the old oracle in Delphi. That there's sort of an external force that can understand people. And if we can't do that, then how are we going to make things? How are we going to sell things and market things if the true and depth of understanding of human societies and human beings and human needs would come from a human interpretation and an analysis of the situation. So I think it's technologies are supporting systems. They're extensions of man, you could say, or woman, but they're supporting, not at the core of the experience. I think that's important. And I think the idea, I mean, the Turing test might be the best example here, that the Turing test is, can a machine convince or trick a human into thinking that it's a human? You know, that's the original Turing test. Mm-hmm. I think a real Turing test should be, will a machine have social anxiety? And will it experience the world through social anxiety? Say, as an example, because that's the way we interpret the world. So I think we should reformulate the Turing test and say, we've passed the original one, but in order to get to human-like intelligence, we would need to get to something like that. And I haven't seen a machine convince me yet that it's got some of that.
Yeah, it would be difficult without emotion and caring, I suppose. Yeah. David DeWolf and Courtney Baker recently attended an event at which you were keynoting or speaking, and the focus was discussion of that which makes us truly human. Can you share with us, and for those who weren't in attendance, what was the punchline and what is the important takeaway for folks listening?
Well, it is that we're still other than machines. We're still different from machines. Yeah. So Google or DeepMind made a machine that is based on neural nets, and it had the machine teach itself Go and run scenarios. Millions and millions of scenarios playing against itself. And by doing that, it cannot predict anything, but it can play at a level that beat a savant, human, otherworldly excellent Go player, and quite convincingly beat him. And there was a sadness when that happened, because it's a big deal, particularly if you come from China or South Korea or Far East. There's a sadness that machines now are better, but are they though? I mean, the question is it even playing, or is it just processing information at a level that we can't even imagine? What's interesting about that is it was done with technologies that are quite different from the technologies that won against Kasparov in the 90s. It was done through neural nets, and neural nets are extraordinary breakthroughs. They're mysterious in a sense, just like the human mind is mysterious, and we don't understand how it does it. But saying that then that means that it's either a human-like intelligence or some sort of God seems to me like otherworldly God that some sort of robot overlord is over-interpreting the moves as creative in the human sense of creative. If you take the 37th move, that move could be experienced as creative, truly machines being creative. But if you think that way, you misunderstand that it's just maths. It's just vast data sets and maths. And it couldn't care less about the move. It's exquisite if you know how to play Go, it's an exquisite move. Mm-hmm. But only humans can understand that it's exquisite and creative. Mm-hmm. So if you are a business leader, or if you lead, a hospital or a government agency, understanding the end user, understanding the people that you serve, wouldn't come from a machine that doesn't have the kind of creativity and interpretation abilities that we have. So humans are out of fashion right now, but I project, just like short pants or long pants, we'll be back because you'll see the limits. You see the amazing upsides, but you'll also see the limits. And you'll see how we're over-interpreting right now. This distinction between human being other than machine still stands in my experience, or in my sort of, that's what I think about it.
So, Christian, as you I think know, this is a holiday episode. So I wonder, when you think about AI and humanity, and the connection to the holidays, what comes to mind?
There is something about very basic categories like space and time for humans, that it is 3 o'clock at pretty much the same time every day. But sometimes it feels like it's early, or sometimes it's experienced as very far away, even though it's very close by. The same with space. Here and yonder, here and over there, can be far or not so far, depending on the human experience. Now, the same with, the holidays. There's just a time that's different. There's a time that feels different, is experienced different, has a warmth to it, has a humanity to it than any other day. There's spaces that have that too. So if you walk up the stairs to the Supreme Court, that's just, you could say that's just feet or meters, but it's not. It's experienced quite differently. So the same goes with time, that humans just experience time and space and distance and color and shape quite different from, you could say, the scientific or the natural science description of it. So when you feel an hour is long or an hour is short, you could say, well, it's an hour. Or you can say, actually, it's actually the case that it's longer or shorter.
And it's important that it feels that way. Yeah. On a recent podcast with Singularity University, you made the comment that the observation that the humanities are collapsing. Could you tell us more about what you meant and what the implications are?
Right. Oh, this is heartbreaking. So it's clear that the humanities faculties are getting emptied. The students are not doesn't want to study music or our English or our stories and our songs and our ideas. They want to study computer science and mathematics and so on. And I am in deep awe of computer science and mathematics. But it's not good that we don't have smart people to study history or smart kids being deeply engaged in the history of philosophy. So there's something worrisome about budgets being cut. I mean, I think we're below half now of what it was in the 90s. And clearly the smartest kids aren't going into those areas. And I think we need a sense of history. We need an understanding of our history. We need an understanding of our music, our songs, our stories, and the history of our stories. And the humanities is exactly that. So that's you could say, the cultural side. The business side of that is, if we have very few people, and if we don't have the amount of you could say the intelligence of the people that can understand other people, then we will have worse product, we'll have worse campaigns, we will have worse things in our lives, because we can't inform it in a qualified, historical, cultural way. And we need both, basically. So that's what worries me about the humanities, that we will end up in a place where we lose those skills and that sensitivity.
I think you used the term heartbreaking at the beginning of this segment, and it feels that way. What gives you hope?
So I'm a huge fan of the human race, and I love it, and I'm extraordinarily optimistic on our behalf. And I think we are going to solve all our problems, and we're going to do that through science and creativity and understanding each other. And I think we can improve our ability to predict if we have human science and computer science merging. So a full stack of computer science activities include sociology and parts of humanities. Mm-hmm. That way we can predict how humans will behave in a pandemic, or how humans will behave if the interest rates move from 4.5% to 5%. We will be able to see much clearer if you have a merger of those practices and those sciences, and that will happen. And that makes me quite optimistic, you could say, about the future of computer science even.
Christian, I want to say a very special thank you. It's been an honor to have you on the show, and no small irony that the distinction you draw around that which makes us uniquely human involves emotion and caring, which show up both in your words and in how you deliver them. So Thank you
It's kind
so
of you
much.
to say. Thank you very much.
All the best. Thank you.
That's it for today's episode. And would you be so willing to also give us a gift by liking, rating, or reviewing the show wherever you listen? And maybe even better, if you're on Spotify, leave us a comment in the Q&A portion of the app. As always, we'd like to ask one of our favorite AI chatbots to share their take on the episode's topic. Today, we thought we'd ask our old friend ChatGPT what Christmas means to a machine learning algorithm.
As an AI, I don't have personal experiences or emotions, so I don't have personal feelings about Christmas. However, I understand it as a time of celebration, family gatherings, and cultural traditions like gift giving and festive decorations.
Oh, well, when you say it like that, ChatGPT, it does make my heart so warm and fuzzy. And now you're in the know. We won't be here next week on New Year's Day, but we will be back on January 8th with more AI news, roundtable discussions, and interviews. Happy holidays, everyone.